Anti-Semitism recasts Israel as a genocidal or apartheid state. And once Israel is portrayed in that way, America, its principal defender, is portrayed in that way as well. The American-led alliance system, which anchors global stability, suddenly looks malign. Anti-Semitism corrodes the legitimacy on which our entire system rests. The Declaration of Independence tells us that all men are created equal. And by that measure, every prejudice is un-American. But anti-Semitism carries a more consequential dimension. It destabilizes, as John just told us, the strategic architecture on which the United States depends. It strikes at the foundations of American power: religious, cultural, political, military, and diplomatic. That is what makes it uniquely anti-American, a national security threat as much as an assault on civic equality. Today, anti-Semitism is coming at us from the left and the right simultaneously, and what I think is really unprecedented in my lifetime. On the left, progressivism advances interpretive frameworks, such as the 1619 Project, that depict the United States as structurally racist from its beginning. U.S. support for Israel becomes, in that framework, the foreign policy expression of that same injustice. Among younger Democrats, this is now the dominant moral lens. Unfavorable views of Israel among 18 to 29-year-olds rose from 33% in 2018 to 56% in 2024. On the right, a different but structurally parallel narrative is taking hold. Tucker Carlson, perhaps the leading anti-Semite in America today, presents the U.S.-Israel partnership as proof of elite corruption. He attacks the theological bases of evangelical Zionism, portrays support for Israel as harmful to U.S. interests in general, and features guests on his show who claim that since 1945, a disloyal Jewish elite has manipulated American foreign policy. These ideas now circulate widely among younger populist Republicans. Thus, on the progressive left, the United States is condemned as a racialized, illegitimate system, and on the populist right, it is condemned as a captured system run by hidden elites. In both cases, Israel becomes the focal point for a judgment on the American system itself. The cumulative effect is to teach a rising generation that the United States has no legitimate purpose in the world. A nation uncertain of its own legitimacy cannot sustain alliances, deter adversaries, or project force and influence abroad. Anti-Semitism therefore threatens not only Jewish Americans or the U.S.-Israel partnership, it threatens America's ability to act as a global power. Confronting this challenge is why we're here today. Across our sessions, we will examine this threat from multiple angles: how October 7th exposed fractures in American civic life, how foreign adversaries weaponize anti-Semitism through disinformation and influence operations, how this hatred shapes geopolitical alignments in the Middle East, Europe, and the Indo-Pacific, and how the principles of the American founding provide the intellectual resources to fight back. And finally, also how this undermines President Trump's national security strategy. Our panels bring together government officials, strategists, scholars, technologists, intelligence professionals, and constitutional thinkers to map the threat and identify concrete steps to strengthen American security. To launch this conversation, we begin with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Has he arrived? He's arrived, good. We can't begin if he doesn't arrive. We begin this with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Few people have worked more directly at the intersection of ideology, counterterrorism, and statecraft. Dr. Gorka is serving in the White House as the Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Counterterrorism. He helps to shape the administration's efforts to identify, disrupt, and dismantle terrorist threats to the United States and its allies. He's both a scholar of insurgent movements and a former and an advisor to President Trump in the first administration. He brings deep experience in understanding how extremist ideologies adapt, metastasize, and exploit the vulnerabilities of open societies. He's also a close advisor to the president, and he has a profound grasp on the president's strategic vision. His vantage point, spanning analysis, policy, and operations, makes him uniquely suited to explain how anti-Semitism functions not just as a prejudice, but as a strategic weapon used by hostile actors. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gorka. There he is, I see. He has a very, very identifiable profile, and I saw it through the glass. There he is.
Hi, buddy. Greetings. All right, so I have the 3-hour lecture and then the 6-hour fireside chat. Are we good? Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sebastian, Gorka, Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Counterterrorism. And I'll be talking today about a topic that is dear to my heart. Why? Because I bring a certain baggage to my work in the White House, in this administration, in the prior administration. If you're not familiar with my backstory, my parents, as children, lived under fascism in Central Europe, and then fascism was replaced by communism. My father, at the age of 20, was betrayed by Kim Philby, received a life sentence in a communist prison, and then was liberated by the brave revolutionaries of 1956. As such, I bring the baggage of a family that has lived through totalitarianism of both stripes, and then realized after 9/11, once I'd started a career in national security, that jihadism is just another form of totalitarianism. The symbols may change, the narrative may be slightly different, but at the end of the day, whether it's the Third Reich, whether it's a Stalinist communist regime, or whether it is Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, or ISIS, these are all totalitarian ideologies that preach one thing: we will kill you or we will enslave you. I am very proud to work for the 45th and the 47th President of the United States, who is the most philo-Semitic commander-in-chief since the re-establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. I like to remind people, because it's so counterintuitive, only one president, as president, has prayed at the Wailing Wall, who has gone to Jerusalem to recognize the cultural heritage of our civilization as a Judeo-Christian civilization. There are lots of quotes I wanted to read you from my immediate boss, Secretary Rubio, and talk to you about the recent EO the President signed with the Muslim Brotherhood. But instead, let me start with a story that tells the world who President Trump is and why this time America is serious. Let's roll the clock back to the first Trump administration. And the question of recognizing Jerusalem and moving the embassy. I won't give names, but in that administration, only 3 members of the cabinet supported the president in that decision. And when the president was finally ready to do that which had to be done for various reasons, he held a meeting of the cabinet at which most protested. In fact, one individual who is a master at self-promotion and propaganda, who likes to call himself Mad Dog, more of a lap poodle, Jim Mattis, the then Secretary of Defense, and I say this as an individual who loves the devil dogs. Don't listen, Jim. Of all the services, I love the Marines the best. I spent 2.5 years at Quantico. Mad Dog Mattis said, "Don't do it, sir. Don't recognize Jerusalem. You can't move the embassy. You will trigger World War III. I don't have enough Marines to protect all our embassies in the Middle East." What did the Commander-in-Chief say? after 23 years of America breaking our promises, people forget this. It was Slick Willie, it was Bubba, it was Clinton who first said we would do this. He didn't follow through. Bush didn't follow through. Obama didn't follow through. And the really embarrassing aspect of that, this was a requirement of the US government we'd made a commitment to. And as a result of that written commitment, every 6 months for 23 years, the White House had to inform the government of Israel, sorry guys, we're not going to do it this year. 46 times America had to admit to being a deadbeat until the billionaire from Queens arrived. And he said to Mad Dog Mattis, Jim, we're doing it. We're doing it because America promised the people of Israel. I promised the people of America in the campaign. Oh, and by the way, Jim, it's the right thing to do. That's Donald J. Trump. And it's so weird. World War III didn't break out. So strange. One of the greatest regrets of my life is I was invited by our then ambassador, David Friedman, to come to the opening of our embassy in Jerusalem, and for family reasons I couldn't attend. But why does this matter? Why? I'm here to talk about anti-Semitism in the context of counterterrorism and what I truly believe to be a civilizational war between barbarity and Western civilization. Western civilization, which is the greatest civilization the world has ever seen. We are unapologetic. Read the National Security Strategy, which was launched a week ago today. There is one civilization which is better than all, and it is ours. We are saddened that parts of it, especially on the European continent, are in decline. We would like to help reverse that. But we understand our roots and why they are so important. So what has this got to do with anti-Semitism? Will you allow me to go on a little bit of down a rabbit warren for a second?
As long as you praise me in the process.
Oh, thank you, Michael, for inviting me today. And thank you to this august institution, and it's great to see all the familiar faces in the audience. Michael is a trooper. The only thing that really pisses me off about Michael Duran is we need him back in government. So I got your number. So why? What has this got to do with national security? Well, let me wax theological for a moment. Bear with me. My first degree was philosophy and theology, and my good friend, our good friend, Andrew Klavan, recently made an incredibly deep philosophical point about anti-Semitism, which, by the way, I think is PC. I think the right word for our topic today is Jew hatred, not anti-Semitism. That's milquetoast. That's pablum. It's Jew hatred. And Andrew, in one of his recent podcasts, one of the best podcasts in America, said, you need to understand what anti-Semitism, what Jew hatred is really about. It's not about the Jews. It's about Christianity and the Jews. Go back and read the German philosophers. Understand what Nietzsche was saying. What were their critiques of Judaism? Well, they said the problem with it is from Judaism we got what? That famous Jew called Jesus, who gave us Christianity. And what's the problem with Christianity, according to the German philosophers? It's a slave theology. You do what? You promote weakness. The servant is more important than the master. It's not triumph of the will, some Nietzschean Superman. No, it's the opposite of that. Christianity is about love, not power, And they hated this concept of a weak slave theology. How could it be that the slaves of the circus defeated the Roman Empire? That's an outrage to those who believe that might is right. And the anti-Semite is in fact galled by the fact that Judaism brought us what? Monotheism and objective truth. The modern German philosopher said what? There is no objective truth. There is Macht, there is power, there is will. Christianity says the opposite. We have a relationship with the Creator who is the truth. The rejection of the Jew is the rejection of the West. It is the rejection of Christianity as well. That is why we care. That is why we just designated the Muslim Brotherhood, which I will get to in a moment, because what we did a few weeks ago has been woefully misinterpreted and deliberately misrepresented by the clickbait prostitutes of social media, some of whom paint themselves as MAGA, who just need the clicks. But I'll get to that in a second. So, let me quote what we are doing and why we are doing it. From the remarkable Neo Kissinger, who has both National Security Advisor and Secretary of State and National Archivist and a few other jobs is his title, Secretary Rubio. The poison of anti-Semitism, which has plagued mankind for centuries, has visited us now and again in this century. And it still courses through the veins of cowards in dark corners of the world. Anti-Semitism today hides behind geopolitics. Oh, I'm not an anti-Semite. I just don't like the government of Bibi Netanyahu. No, you're a Jew hater, because there's only one Jewish state in the world. Back to Marco. It embeds itself in international organizations, in the curricula of our colleges and universities, in the voices of some who hide behind social media and even openly espouse this ancient poison. Quote, from the river to the sea. October the 7th was an act of mass anti-Semitic terror that showed how Hamas, quote, dreams of a world without Jews. And lastly, most powerfully, from Secretary Rubio, there can be no compromise with anti-Semitism. That is why, just a few weeks ago, thanks to my incredible team at the Counterterrorism Directorate of the NSC, and especially my colleague Nancy, who held the pen on the EO, the President decided to designate key chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan Muslimin. Thank you. Why? Because the Muslim Brotherhood is the progenitor of all modern global jihadism and the propagator, the transmission belt of the most heinous anti-Semitic Jew hatred today across the region and sadly in America as well. In the founding charter of Hamas, which calls itself a chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, is quoted. Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. Nothing clearer than that mission statement. But let's bring it all back home. Maybe you've never been to Israel, as I have. Maybe you've never seen the unedited videos of what really happened on October the 7th. Young boys hiding in a shelter until a grenade is thrown into the shelter, which kills their father and blows one of the little boy's eyes out of his skull. And as he's pulled out by the terrorists back into his home, as they go to the fridge to drink soda, and the one son says to the other, "I can't see, I can't see." That's the weakest of what I saw on that video. Let's bring it closer to home. I think we have an image just to make it all relevant of this beautiful couple. Is there nothing more joyous than seeing a young man and woman about to set off on their life together to become one in marriage? Staff members of the Israeli embassy here in DC, Yaron Lechinsky and Sarah Milgram, whose lives were brutally taken. Just a little stroll from here. I think we've got Hudson on the bottom, and in the middle, the site of where they were killed, outside the Jewish Museum, just a few minutes away. And what did the man say who extinguished their beautiful young lives as he pulled the trigger of that weapon? "Free Palestine! I do this for Gaza." It's not in some tunnel under the Gaza Strip. It's 5 minutes walk from here. And in the 900-word manifesto, that piece of human filth posted online prior to his act of murder, he said the following. He titled his screed, "Escalate for Gaza, bring the war home." That is why we are deadly serious. President Trump, Secretary Marco, Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller, et al., to stomp out the Jew hatred that is a hatred of Western civilization. Finally, before we have a chat with my good friend Michael, let me explain that which we really don't have the time to do much. So a savant in our press team said to me a few months ago, I told him what my biggest problem with the Trump administration is. Biggest problem is we can't keep up with President Trump. It is simply humanly impossible. My colleagues and I live what is called skiff life, okay? We're in a secure compartmented information facility for 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, and much more because of them. And we leave our cell phones outside because we have to. And then we come out, to stretch our legs, grab a coffee, and then we look at our phones. Oh my gosh, what did he just do? Another peace deal? Peace deal number 8? I mean, we just physically can't keep up with this man. Let me illustrate a personal story. We had, in September, a very important EO had been written by another member of my team regarding hostages and wrongfully detained US citizens. And this time, we were going to have a public signing of our directorate's EO in the Oval, and the president opened it up to the press. And I had my colleague next to me at the Resolute desk. I had our incredible envoy for hostages, Adam Bowler. And then Will Scharf, the man who explains all the EOs by heart on camera, comes in, presents it to the president signs it, and then turns to me and my colleague live on camera and says, "Hey, Seb, hey, Julia, tell the world why this is such a good EO." Like, okay, sir. And so she's never spoken on live television ever. Kind of interesting moment for her. For me, it was a little bit easier. And then, that was a pretty good day. Have our EO signed by the president live on television. 90 minutes later, we're back in the Oval to give him a very sensitive classified briefing on another issue, which went very well. And then we went back to our office. It was, whatever, 5, 6 o'clock on a Friday, and I said to my team, EO sign from our directorate, live TV coverage, and then a classified briefing. Not bad for a Friday. Pretty good. Then I finally get back home, crawl in bed with my wife, Katie. I get to see her for about 90 minutes of a day. And she switches on the television, live coverage. President Trump hosting his first Rose Garden Club party, giving a speech. And we just look at each other and go, how does he do this? It's just like, it's genetic. It is purely genetic. So that's the first problem, keeping up with the president. Second problem is, as this genius kid from the press team said, you know what we need to do in the Trump administration? We all need to stop working for 3 days. Just all of us. Pens down, stop working, and explain to the world what we are doing and what the president is doing, because we're moving so fast. We don't have the luxury of explication. From the tariffs to the drug boats to NATO 5% to everything Scott Bessent is doing to AI to you name it, to the 9th peace deal imminently. The president's moving so fast, we don't have the time. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. So on the drug boats, can I just, please, I don't know if you're recording this or if you can do a clip or something, or just do me a favor. Can we just destroy the garbage out there, the asinine, clinically imbecilic coverage of the drug boats? The mainstream media and the Democrats would have you believe my friend Pete Hegseth is, in an operations center with a joystick, and he says, "Ooh, fishermen," right? Like, can I, without, divulging any secrets, I can assure you, I can guarantee you, I would swear on the good book, we're here on the podium, we have such exquisite intelligence on every single vessel. With mild hyperbole. We know what size underwear they're wearing. We know their great-grandmother's maiden name. We know exactly what's on that ship, where it's heading, who they work for. We know that each ship is going to cost the lives of at least 50,000 Americans. We have them banged to rights just as much as we do any of the high-value terrorists we have killed since 9/11. The collection is superlative. We don't take that shot in self-defense of our nation unless we have full confirmation that they are guilty of poisoning Americans. That is simply a statement of fact. So let's clear the air on the Muslim Brotherhood designation, despite what some influencers would have you believe. It's a statement of designation to occur, not a de facto designation, because we follow the law in the Trump administration. We believe in the Constitution and the statutes agreed upon by Congress and signed by the president. We don't just do stuff because we want to. We don't deploy the FBI against Catholics in Richmond because they go to Latin Mass. We don't raid the former president's home at gunpoint because we don't want him to win an election. We believe in the rule of law. As such, FTO designation has to be done according to the law. A foreign terrorist organization must have killed Americans or must have gravely affected the national security of the United States, and that must be proven with predominantly unclassified information that stands up in a court of law and which is less than 3 years old. It's not me. That's the law in America. We can't just willy-nilly say, yeah, he's a terrorist, he's a terrorist, he's a terrorist. That's what the Biden administration does. Oh, you don't want your children to wear masks in school? Oof, hope, domestic terrorist. We don't do that. So number one, the mechanics of the designation is stipulated in law, and we are following it. We chose 3 that are slam dunk cases, like Jordan, like Lebanon, like Egypt. Why? Well, because Egypt is where the Muslim Brotherhood was created. And if Egypt and Jordan can ban or designate the Muslim Brotherhood, don't you think it's about time we did too? If Arab Muslim nations can do it, I guess we could too. But for the record, Lara, for the record, Mr. Carlson, for the record, or the clickbait, I will control myself. It's unusual. For the record, this is not the beginning. This is not the end. It is just the beginning. And we are assiduously working on the next tranche of designations right now. And please read the statute, you cretinous individuals. We're not designating states. It's organizations. So if you think, oh my gosh, you left this country out, that's because you cannot call a country a foreign terrorist organization by American law. Do your homework, unless, of course, you're in it for the ads and the clicks. But we are committed to one thing: destroying the Brotherhood, its offshoots, and global jihadism writ large, at least suppressing it to a point at which it is no longer a strategic threat. I joke about this, but it's not really a joke. My objective is to put myself out of business. I'm a little bit like that great secretary Linda McMahon, right? Who hired the president hired her and said, your job is to shut down the Department of Education. Thank you, Mr. President. It is wrong that the White House has a senior director for counterterrorism. Terrorists should not be a strategic threat. It's wrong. China, Russia, people with 6,000 nuclear warheads, yeah, maybe. But guys running around the desert with rusty AKs, not so much. We have a senior director because of 9/11, which is understandable. But I want to get us back to a point at which terrorism is not a strategic threat. And we do that by stamping out the Muslim Brotherhood, and we do that by making Jew hatred and anti-Semitism history in civilized nations. Thank you.
The difficulty of interviewing you is you mince your words.
I know.
It's really hard. It's really
I beat
hard.
about the bush.
It's really hard to nail you down on what you really think about things. No, thank you for that. Let me hone in on one thing you mentioned. You said you have a colleague in the press office who said, let's stop and explain for 3 days. Because it seems to me one of the problems that we have today is that there are a lot of people out there who are very close, who are either MAGA adjacent or well branded as MAGA, who are not expressing the president's opinion on Israel, and I think there's a kind of a brand pollution as a result of that. And of course, for me, I mean, the number one person there is Tucker Carlson. He's going on his own jihad against evangelical Christians and against the state of Israel.
And Jewish conservatives like David Rubin.
And Jewish conservatives. How do you understand if I can take you a little bit out of your counterterrorism responsibilities and say, how do you understand what's going on in MAGA?
Yeah.
I never would have predicted this.
So first things first, it's not a very senior media person texted me a few days ago and labeled this the civil war in MAGA. So can we just set things straight here? This is not a civil war in MAGA. It's a couple of people who are very loud. It's not MAGA, okay? You get out of, I have to remind my friends, you know Twitter's not the real world, right? X is not America. Leave the beltway, touch the grass. Okay, so the idea that MAGA is riven through with this division, garbage. There's about 6 morons who are really clickbait prostitutes or mental cases, truly mental cases. There's one lady in particular who I think she needs psychiatric assistance. okay? And they just want the money, or they have other issues. Daddy didn't love them, something. And for me, and you know better than anyone, this is just a recrudescence. This is a pauper's repackaging of Buchananite, anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish sentiment. There's nothing new in this. I mean, the idea you're going to whitewash Hitler and do a revisionist history of World War II. I mean, does anybody know who David Irving is? I mean, really, this is not new. It's not, oh my gosh, I'm so controversial. I'm going to have a podcaster who nobody's ever heard of come on my show to talk about how Hitler was the victim of World War II and Churchill was the bad guy. We've heard this since the 1950s. But it's a cheap version. It's like a photocopy done 100 times. Neo-Buchananite photocopy, nth version. Number one, it's not new. Number two, it's just totally transparently garbage. I mean, I just go to my Twitter feed and repost or have a look at the video I posted last night. David Rubin is interviewed by Megyn Kelly, please, Megyn, choose your sides wisely. Don't go down the route of the, Candace Owenses of the world. But I think it's Megyn who says, what is this about Tucker saying he doesn't know who you are? Have you seen this? Tucker's biggest answer to his critics, oh, this person I've never heard of. Like, who is Dave Rubin? They have this video. Who is Dave? I never heard of him. And then Dave pulls out his book that he wrote two years ago with this massive blurb from Tucker Carlson on the back. David Rubin, amazing, really, buy this book. Like, you're just a fraud, Tucker. I mean, really, it's just so asinine. I'm not worried about it. Why? Because it's 6 people with loud voices who like to do episodes also on Sasquatch and chemtrails. I mean, you're just a clown that wants clicks. You're a clickbait clown. I think we can use that phrase. And the best thing is, what did the president tweet or put on Truth Social 2 months ago? Tucker the kook, right? Kooky Carlson. The idea that these people have any grip on the president, on MAGA, is utterly fallacious. It's problematic, but we've seen it before. We will excise it from decent conservative company, just like we did it before. So don't believe the hype is my response.
That's beautiful. The National Security Strategy
Yes.
you mentioned is a very, very interesting document. And I think if you read it closely, you don't even have to read it closely. It's very clear that a lot of the criticisms of the Trump administration about isolationism, abandoning the world, they're simply not true.
No.
And you can see it in Western Hemisphere, Europe, Middle East, and so on. And it seems to me, I don't think
sorry, can I just interject?
Sure.
That is also a rejection of the Tuckerites of the world. Because what do they say? Oh, who cares about the rest of the world? All we care about is America. America first means ignore everyone else. Well, then read the National Security Strategy, because it's not isolationist. It says some regions matter more than others, and the Monroe Doctrine is going to be the new Trump corollary. We're going back to saying some pieces of Earth are more important than others, especially the backyard of America.
I don't think the strategy says this, but this is my interpretation of it, that especially in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia as well, the U.S.-Israeli alliance, as it has manifested itself under President Trump with in Operation Midnight Hammer, is really the model that he's aiming at. Would you agree with that?
It's not explicit, but it is of maybe 3 or 4 partner-ally relations. It is one of the exemplars, absolutely, especially if you look at Midnight Hammer. Israel does what it has to do, with waves of kinetic sorties for 12 days. And I was in the sit room, I was underneath the West Wing when we did Operation Midnight Hammer. And it was just, if you read that, let's be serious, ladies and gentlemen, if you read Midnight Hammer in a Tom Clancy novel, you'd say, Tom, you're just stretching credulity, okay? Jack Ryan saving a nuclear sub, maybe, but a whole fleet of stealth bombers going into Iranian airspace for 42 minutes, coming out, and not even one .22 rifle is fired at them. That's just unbelievable. I was watching it on the big screens. I mean, it's what I termed before I came back into the administration, and the president concurred, surgical strength. We are not going to invade other people's countries. We're not interventionists. We're not going to turn you into a democracy at the end of a gun barrel. But when there is an extant threat, when it is imminent, we will come down on you like the hammers of hell, whether it's Soleimani, whether it's the chemical weapons in Syria, or whether it's the nuclear sites in Iran. Exquisite use of force when necessary, in cooperation with excellent partners.
And so then this, I think, has to be one of our major arguments against the
Yes.
against the anti-Semites, that this is actually the model partnership in the
Totally. Yeah, and just imagine a region, imagine a CENTCOM region where Israel isn't doing what Israel's doing with regards to Iran, with regards to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Pager operation. I mean, that makes all of us safer. What we've seen on the streets of Buenos Aires, what we've seen on the streets of America, these are all, I mean, I can't go into all the details, but Iran, as we know, if you look at the open source, is trying to kill US officials, is trying to kill former US officials on US soil, not when they're visiting the Middle East, but here. Any nation that assists us in keeping Americans safe, how is that a bad thing?
It's such an odd thing about the MAGA. I don't know what to call them. What are we going to call them?
Pseudo-MAGA.
The pseudo-MAGA broadcasters. That at this very moment, when it's very clear what the president's vision is, and when we have very serious foreign threats, the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians, that they've got us all talking about whether the Jews did 9/11.
Yeah.
And what is this?
Sorry. Yeah, let me, I didn't fully deal with the phenomena. So yes, it's a cheap neo-Buchananite, veiled Jew hatred, put in isolationist terms. But there's a broader thing, and I'm not making excuses for these people. As far as I'm concerned, these people are, I wipe them off the bottom of my shoe, these individuals.
Again, you're mincing words.
I know. But there is, it's what Konstantin Kisin calls the woke right. It's a very interesting concept, and James Lindsay as well. That because of various external factors, number one, the dearth of critical thought in Western civilization. I mean, when I'm asked career advice from 20-somethings, what should I do to be successful? And I tell them, whether you want to be a national security wonk like me or a brain surgeon, one piece of advice. Every day, switch this stinking thing off, and pick up a book with pages, preferably written by a dead white man, preferably dead for at least 4 centuries, okay? So Shakespeare or older, okay? And read a book. So number one, critical, how many even, I am a wicked addict of social media, yeah? I see myself opening a book, and if it takes me longer to read that page than a 60-second video on X, I'm like, I start to get the jitters, right? So we have to retrain critical thought so we don't have critical thought amongst these influencers. And lastly, what do we have this general ennui, this general cynicism, which should be in fact skepticism of authority, because they lied to us about the Iraq War, they lied to us about COVID, they lied to us, there's this long laundry list of the experts, the Faucis, the WMD experts, whoever it is, who have no authority. Therefore, what does the woke right translate this into, which is really dangerous? It's like that comedian David What's-his-face who says, it's all the Israel is the problem and blah, blah, blah. The end argument of this is there are no experts. Don't trust anyone. Well, that way lies anarchy. I mean, I know expert. You want me to tell you who an expert is on information operations, on nuclear improvised munitions, on threat finance. I can give you real experts, but what the woke right has turned skepticism into is global cynicism, and that's what these pseudo-MAGA fakers are exploiting. Sorry, that's the broader context.
It was, the name you were looking for was Dave Smith.
Dave Smith, yeah.
I think it's funny because I've actually never heard him say a funny thing, but he's branded himself as comedian Dave Smith.
But think about this. We're talking about people, right, whose self-label, whose category is stand-up comedian. And what's his greatest import today? His impact on the debate on geopolitics in the Middle East. I mean, that would have been a Monty Python skit. Stand-up comedian is explaining to us the whys and wherefore of where ISIS came from. I don't think so. That's moronic.
So I want to ask you, because you don't mince words, so could you sum up in 2 or 3 sentences, 5 with semicolons, the essence of the vision behind the national security strategy? Because I want to prime you.
Yeah.
Because I sat down, I read it twice, and I think there's, from a communications point of view, I think there's one problem with it, and that's that the word China doesn't appear as often as the idea of China is in it. So I mean, what I mean to say is that I think for prudential reasons, the president didn't want to have China in every paragraph, but actually China is the whole document is suffused with China.
So to summarize, and it's very short. You can read it 3 times or 4 times. So read the.
I read slowly.
Okay. Read the NSS, but I can give you a 2-sentence summary. What we care about as Americans is America, and what is important to America. We are America first, but not America alone. But the principles of America as a functioning nation state and the principles of the international system is bound around one concept: sovereignty. If you want to get fancy and highfalutin, this is the rebirth of Westphalianism, meaning you cannot be a functioning nation state unless you exercise sovereignty. Not just ours, right? Why do we build the wall and have 0 illegal immigration now? Because you can't be a nation without borders. That's not, it's the revenge of common sense. Everything the president does is just common sense. Men shouldn't go into female restrooms. It's not a political statement.
Do I have to stop? Shit.
TMI. It's not an ideological statement to say men should not go into private women's areas. It's common sense for 8 millennia. Second, you can't have a nation without sovereignty. Whether you're America or Mexico. Could you imagine how good it would be for us if Mexico was a fully sovereign nation? Some of the cartels roll around in equipment and wearing stuff that would make tier 1 units in NATO jealous. Armored vehicles, nods, latest ceramic plated gear. I mean, who's exercised? A nation state has to have what? 2 things. It has to have the right to tax and monopoly on the use of force. Who has a monopoly on the use of force in Mexico? No one. Lots of actors use force with impunity, not just the feds. So, number 1, America's interest, sovereignty, and then, thirdly, we are a civilizational entity. We care about Western civilization. And we are saddened and perturbed when parts of that civilization seem to be crumbling. Not just in terms of demographics, but in terms of the rights upon which we built our civilization. I mean, look at the horrific stories from the UK. I grew up in the UK. If you told me that the land of Margaret Thatcher and Churchill now is putting people in prison because of a Facebook post. Did you see the Facebook post of that accountant who was just put in prison? He came to America and fired a shotgun and posted a photograph of him firing a shotgun. I'm a gun guy, I'm a nerd, all right?
look at the photograph of him. It looks like he's holding something radioactive. He's so afraid of it. He's clearly never shot a gun in his life. His head's in the wrong position. He hasn't got a bead down the rail. It's a guy trying something out on vacation. And he's in prison because guns bad in another country. So principles, national sovereignty, American interests. Oh, and then let me put in a slightly more diplomatic one that suffuses everything we've done internationally. 8 years ago, it was about security. We're going to crush ISIS. We're going to go out there, we're going to hammer them. We're going to make America safe. We're going to go to the Middle East. We're going to find partners to work with us. Now we're transitioning from security to prosperity. In US government, we silo everything, right? We have the Iraqi desk officer. We have the expert on threat finance in Lebanon. Everybody has their little compartment. The President of the United States is a preternatural strategic thinker. He does not hermetically separate diplomacy from national security, from commerce or economics. Why was the first meeting with Zelensky, the disastrous one, why was it about a rare earths mineral deal? Everybody in Europe was saying, Article 5 guarantees, give him NATO membership, blah, blah. We know that a piece of paper from Brussels is about as useful as the one Neville Chamberlain brought back from Munich, okay? But if we've got tens of thousands of Americans in Ukraine mining rare earths, processing rare earths, I'm sorry, but Vlad is going to think twice about invading Ukraine. Commerce, trade, prosperity. I think I made this point the last time I was here. All left-wing politics is the same and different from all right-wing politics. Whether you're a commie or a member of the Labour Party or a Democrat, left-wing politics is predicated on what principle? Zero-sum game, closed box of wealth. There's one pie of wealth, and the government, the elite, will decide how to distribute that pie. It's Marx, yeah? A redistribution of wealth. Closed system. All conservatives, real conservatives, believe in what? The ingenuity of humankind is utterly limitless. Compare gross wealth of the world over the last 400 years. It is a curve, you can't map it so exponential. We believe prosperity is a pie that always grows because of this, the mind. As such, the president is inviting the world to prosper with us. Think of Sharm el-Sheikh. Just internalize this. Everybody's at Sharm el-Sheikh. From Orban to Starmer, who didn't get the podium, which is joyous to watch. Anyway, but who else did the president invite to Sharm el-Sheikh? Who did he invite? Who refused to come? Iran. He even invited the supreme leader to Sharm el-Sheikh and said, hey guys, we're going to rock and roll. We're going to get bigger AI, wealth. Do you want to be part of this? Or do you want to be an idiot who says death to America on Friday? Prosperity is also key to the NSS.
So how do you fit then the U.S.-Israeli relationship in that context? Where do you think it fits? How would you do it? But also, where do you think it fits in the president's mind?
I would do it exactly as President Donald J. Trump does it.
Okay.
Would you expect me to say I'd do it any different?
Yeah, but I want you to tell us your view of how the president sees it, because it connects up all of these issues.
How sees what?
Civilization, prosperity. Yeah. The bilat within this framework.
I think the prosperity part of it is it's not even a factor in the bilateral relations with Israel. I mean, Israel is what? I mean, it is an incubator of high tech. It's doing counter-irregular warfare at the same time as being a high-tech hub for the whole region. I mean, from what was it? When I first found out, I found SodaStream in the 80s, okay? Because it was a big thing in the UK. You can make your own fizzy drinks at home. And then you find out it's an Israeli company with the factory on territory, on settlement territory, with using people from the Palestinian territories as employees. I mean, that's the 1980s. So from soda streams to satellites, I don't think we need any more help for Israel in terms of prosperity. What we need them to do is what I said in the video I posted after I saw what really happened on October the 7th. And I stand by what I said. I was in Congress and I'd just come out of the viewing and I said, I had a message to the IDF, the people of Israel and Netanyahu. Kill every single one of them responsible, salt the earth above their graves, and make sure it never happens again. So let's get that job done first.
You pleased the crowd with that one. Oh, I have a 2-minute warning. Is that what I have? A 1-minute warning. Can we take a question for? Are you? We'll take. We have one question. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Kamran Kari, New Line Institute. So, my understanding of the president's strategy is that the United States will no longer do the heavy lifting in different parts of the world. We need allied and partner nations to take the lead. We're not going away. We will be in a secondary role. We're actually switching places. How would you characterize that in the Middle East? Israel is our ally and the best ally. What about the other allies that are not qualitatively there where Israel is?
Yeah. We're not flipping the role. That's an exaggeration. But look at the language in the NSS. It's very, very deliberate. For decades, we talked about burden sharing. We're moving to burden shifting. Okay? If you are to be measured as a serious ally or a serious partner, we expect more of you. It's a very simple. It's simply, if you're a member, I look at the NATO example. I cut my teeth on NATO, which is 30 years ago. Back then, the idea that we could get 2% of GDP across NATO was a pipe dream. I was in my skiff with Newsmax and the subtitles on, watching the NATO summit, and I see this thing running at the ticker tape saying, President Trump gets 5% GDP commitment from every nation except Spain. And I was about to leave the skiff and call Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax. No, Chris, got a really bad typo on the Chiron. It says 5%. I said, no way it's 5%. And then I decided to go online. I said, yeah, he did it. Not just 2%, not 3%, not 4%, but 5%. I mean, that's, again, beggar's belief. If you read that in a novel, you'd say impossible. So you will be measured in terms of your seriousness as a nation based upon your willingness to do more for our common interests if we have the same threat perception. If you have terrorism as a problem in your country, well, guess what? We want you to be serious about it so you can work with us. With regards to the region, look, the best example I can give is the president's infamous statement on Gaza, right? We're going to take over Gaza. Remember that? And then horror across, the commentariat, the talking. Oh my gosh, how dare he say that? And the nations of the Middle East say, oh, what the arrogance, how dare he say that? For 72 hours. And then what happened? Well, to anyone who's read The Art of the Deal, which I highly recommend to everyone, if you want to understand President Trump, suddenly, 4 days later, nations that really hadn't lifted a finger, that hadn't invested anything in the West Bank or Gaza, who are very rich nations, said, maybe we should spend some money rebuilding that part of the world. That's the art of the deal. That's the Trump effect. And that's what we expect from our partners.
I think we have 2 more minutes, don't we? I'm like, one more minute. Okay, we've got a question in the back, and then we have to make it a laser-like question, and you can make it a. This is your finale. So
Alrighty.
Make it a good one.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. I guess my question was going to be. Oh, my name is Noah Firestone. I'm a RAND student. Given how quickly anti-Semitic ideology is spread across social media platforms, what tools do you think will be the most helpful in this administration to counter the ideology that we see online without harming freedom of expression?
Yeah, so we are serious about the U.S. Constitution. We see it as an enumeration of what the Founding Fathers said it is. which is our God-given rights. There's a reason the word creator is in our founding document with a capital C. That garbage you hear about the founding fathers being, atheists or deists is complete crap. They were God-fearing Christians who said you have freedom of religion. Nobody has to be a Christian, and there is no state religion. But they were clear that America's principles are based upon Christian values. So we're not going to do anything to undermine those principles. But the First Amendment is, of course, one of them. To your point, I think I promised this last time, and I'm happy to promise it again. You need to have an event here with Mr. Miller, because I have the global remit for jihadism. Mr. Miller, who is a force of nature, deals with stuff inside this country. And I think if you look at what we're doing already with the colleges and what we're doing with those who allow the propagation of genocidal ideology on their campuses, there are consequences to that. Why should you receive a penny of federal funding if you allow them? And as Marco, as the secretary, has been very clear, if you're a foreign national, you have no right to come to this country as a student or otherwise. No one has the right to come here. I am a legal immigrant to the United States. I waited in line. I took a test. I took an oath to the US Constitution. So if you do something to undermine any of that as a foreign national, there will be consequences. For US nationals, I think the most important thing, and I'll let Mr. Miller talk to this, is mapping the money trails. How do chants of the river to the sea with protesters who have placards that all look exactly the same? Who printed those? Who funded those? Scott Besson is rather committed to following the money, which is a key. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Seb. Please, everybody join me in thanking Seb for this very, very enlightening